Hello guys, my name is Orest. I'm from Ukraine, and most of the previous year during the Russian invasion I spent in my country, actually on frontline areas, working as the reporter. At the same time, I had the chance to travel to the neighboring countries, being some kind of like a messenger of Ukraine, participating in different events and having a chance to have a wider look on this war, which is actually changing our presence and which will define how the generations of people on our planet will live in the future. You all know what happened. We are already 1 year at war, and in this video I would like to assume what could be the next further steps of the development of this largest military conflict since the World War II, which is actually happening in Europe. But before that, let me give you a quick recap. So Russia launched a massive invasion on Ukraine in the early morning of February 24th. This followed by the land invasion, together with the massive rocket attacks all around the country, hitting military and critical infrastructure. Within days, they almost reached Kyiv, the capital of Ukraine, and you remember that there were active fights happening on both sides of our capital. The entire world was watching in horror and actually counting days for Ukraine to fall. However, we Ukrainians changed the course of the history, obviously with the help of the Western allies who believed in us only after we believed in ourselves. So there are a few crucial things that happened in the previous year. First, during lion's share of the march, it was the siege of Kyiv, fights in the western and eastern suburbs. We remember Bucha, we remember Irpin, Borodyanka, everything which became evident when the Russian troops actually retreated from northern and northeastern Ukraine. This happened in early April. Then there was a siege of Mariupol, you remember, yes? The city fell in late May, as far as I remember, and the entire eastern and southern part of Ukraine, most of them are still under occupation since the early starts of their invasion. During the summer, Russia was slowly getting land in the east, in Donbas, and Kharkiv, the second largest city of Ukraine, was also in a very difficult situation, with the Russian troops actually scratching the northern suburbs of Kharkiv. I had a chance to visit Kharkiv by myself and seen the destruction that the combat left in the northern region of Saltivka, of this actually amazing city. Then, as you remember, there were counteroffensives from the Ukrainian side. So actually Ukrainians started to prevail on the battlefield. First, there was in early September a massive counteroffensive in Kharkiv province, with the major city of Izum being liberated. And then in November there was a counteroffensive on the northern side of the Dnieper River of Khersonska Oblast in the southern Ukraine. Since then, the situation pretty much became a stalemate. We are already 1 year in the war. People all over the world remember how things were going, but they also might be wondering what will happen next. So guys, let me present my point of view and what could be the next few steps of the further development of this conflict, not only within Ukraine, but also in a wider area of Eastern Europe, because this is a global scale massive conflict. So the stage number one, as you know, and as it was declared already by political leaders all around the world, including the Ukrainian elite, the main objective is to regain back and to get the full integrity of Ukraine, which means liberating Donbas and liberating Crimea, thus reaching the territorial integrity of Ukraine, reaching the borders that are mutually agreed by the United Nations, including Donbas and including Crimea. However, stopping at the border with so many vulnerable actions around, in my opinion, will not simply, finish the war. This is the chance for international community eventually to preserve peace in the region for many generations to come. And in order to do this, there are a few other steps necessary to be committed. So after the territory of Ukraine will be liberated in full, in my opinion, the next step will be helping Moldova to regain back Transnistria. Just for you to remember, Transnistria is a very narrow strip of land sandwiched between Ukraine and Moldova along the Dniester River. It is the quasi-republic supported by Russia. There are still approximately 15,000 Russian troops there that stayed silent. They didn't exercise any activity. I assume Russia was holding them for Odessa offensive in the south. However, as we all see, this became to be nearly impossible to win on the battlefield from Ukrainians, at least on the southern direction. Even when Kherson was taken, Mykolaiv stood like a fortress and Odessa became safe. So Moldova has to regain control over Transnistria. Transnistria is mutually in the United Nations agreed as an integral part of Moldova, but unfortunately Moldova doesn't control over it, and Transnistria still serves like a museum from the Soviet Union, actually developing by itself for the last 30 years. So this is the step number 2. Number 1, restoring integrity of Ukraine. Step number 2, Moldova takes control over Transnistria. But this is not the end, of course, guys, because in the north of Ukraine we have Belarus with Lukashenko, who is the last true dictator of Europe. However, now we obviously have a Putin as another dictator, still will continue to be a threat in the entire region. And the proof of that is that Belarus gave Russian troops the option to use their territory on Kiev attack, as you remember, yes, and this continues to be a threat. The entire northern border between Ukraine and Belarus is heavily fortified at the moment, so basically they will not get us surprised anymore. However, still, until Lukashenko is in power, Belarus will continue to be a threat in this part of the world. So I believe the Belarusian people will have another chance to make a peaceful democratic revolution. Just for you to remember, there was an attempt already in 2020 with hundreds of thousands Belarusians going on the streets. Unfortunately, all those protests were brutally suppressed, and now tens of thousands Belarusians are scattered all around Europe, many of them seeking for the refuge in Poland or in other neighboring countries like Lithuania, for example. So, in my opinion, the peace in the entire region of Eastern Europe will be incomplete if Belarus will stay authoritarian regime, right? So there has to be some liberal movements there, and I believe the Belarusian people truly deserve it, even though they are much more in a difficult situation than Ukrainians in terms of their national self-identification. So they will need probably another help over here. This will be one of the puzzles of unification of Europe, because historically Belarus was always, like for many centuries before Russian occupation there, was a part of Lithuania, was controlled by other European states, and basically together with Ukraine they form the entire European community. But even if there will be a democratic Belarus again, still I believe there will be a threat in Eastern Europe until there will be a bomb in the middle of the Baltics, which is the Kaliningrad oblast, formerly the Eastern Prussia, with a beautiful city of Königsberg. At the moment, since the World War II, Kaliningrad oblast is an integral part of Russian Federation, and I truly believe that the politicians in Europe understand that they cannot leave it like this there. It will always continue to be a threat for the entire region. So, in my opinion, the war in Ukraine is a good chance to, solve everything as the package. And there has to be done something with Kaliningrad Oblast. Who knows how it will be handled? First of all, it has to be demilitarized. And secondly, in my opinion, considering very strategically important position in the middle of the Baltics between Poland, Lithuania, Sweden on the other side of the Baltic Sea, Kaliningrad Oblast can serve as some kind of special international zone, right? Maybe special economic union, maybe another formation of a European Union and so on. So this is the step number 4. And guys, eventually the 5th step, in order to preserve the peace in Eastern Europe and the entire wider area, in my opinion, should be the dissolution of the Russian Federation as it is now. If you think so, Russia is one of the last true land empires. Only up to 70% of the Russian population are ethnic Russians. The rest are representatives of different ethnical minorities, some of whom have a significant population among the demographics of the entire federation. And I believe those people, Tatars, Chechens, Ingushetians, Yakuts, Tiva, and a range of other nationalities, they also deserve their own nation, they also deserve their own country, and probably there are some movements of self-identification. There is a chance that Russian Federation will be dissolved as its present form, and other various nation states will be formed on this huge landmass in northern Eurasia. Only after that there will be a balance of power in the area, which will be possible to preserve peace for a long time. Well guys, those were my ideas. Let me remind you the 5 steps of development events in war in Ukraine. Number 1, Ukraine restores its integrity, including Donbas and Crimea. Number 2, Moldova takes back control after Transnistria. Number 3, Belarus becomes a democracy with overthrowing the regime of Lukashenko. Number 4, Kaliningrad becomes not part of Russia and some kind of form of international zone. And number 5, that Russian Federation dissolves as its present form and new national states are appearing on their territory, with Russia for Russians and other entities for different nations that currently reside within the Russian Federation. Let me know guys, what do you think about such further steps? In my opinion, this is a likely scenario. Obviously it will take not 1, not 2, not even 5 years. It will take probably decades for this to happen, but this is something that I think we could expect in the future, and this is the scenario which hopefully will make our world a better place. In the meantime, I wish you all the best. Please stay strong, continue staying with Ukraine, and let's carry on with this war. Wish you all the best and looking forward to see you in the upcoming videos. This was Orest from Ukraine.